It's really great pleasure to be here with you today. And now, using the example and in continuation of the first report with which I spoke in America at the SCMS Summit on the implementation of a unique system, there was configured the integration of more than 10 IT planning, accounting, and execution systems. I propose to talk to you about the following. At a particular moment with certain people after a certain preparation, why it is not possible to just take and replicate it in the same way? What's the difference between implementing a project from scratch and trying to replicate it? Just one slide from the previous presentation. And the initial premises were, firstly, a team that can really do a project with all the following consequences. And obviously, such a team is limited. And secondly, there is a situation with replication, but it's different. The company has the illusion that if it had succeeded on the hub of business, then what's the problem with doing the same on the second half? And there is a bottom-up approach, and there is also a top-down approach. There are pros and cons. So there is a plus that the company sees that the process, the system is working on one part of it. And it is an inspirational value of the highest level. Inspiration. It is good that there is an understanding within the company of how it works in detail and in practice, not some theory, but practice. And the minus is that all the points that I mentioned in the first presentation, America's presentation, such as team, top-level people, preliminary work, maturity level, the software itself, the lack of expectations of the red button, and the willingness of understanding that you should always choose Maserati and not Kia while using it at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour. Here begins some kind of debunking of myths, because there are no people and everything else in the rest of business. Of everything that I listed earlier, necessary for the successful implementation of an IT system, in general, if you think about it, if you did it on some limited piece, everything was on it. And if it were all on a more significant part, you would do it on a bigger part too. And accordingly, this is a straightforward conclusion that all that is needed is not there. So in other words, one could say that if it was possible to cut off the piece where it already happened, then the company needn't start the process since the company lacks everything: maturity, people, understanding, etc. So therefore, the approach to this scaling with a working solution to other company divisions turned out to be fundamentally different. And one more plus is the ability to make a prototype for related areas based on working system. This is a technical issue, but it solves the question of transferring a person from the state we have a different business to the why not state. So, and now back to the myths. The myths themselves are banal, sorry, my bad English. And about the organizational myth, I'm talking about some of the pieces of the bottom-up, top-down triangle. So in the first presentation about the bottom-up case, I spoke about a certain organizational readiness of the company in two senses. Top management readiness and organizational readiness at maturity. That is, we talk about the sublime. And in the top-down case, there is no such thing like a replication. Maybe this is a minus, but there is also a plus because we have inspiration. And this inspiration paradoxically operates with animal senses, that kind of animal sense of envy, rivalry, administrative leverage. So it should be so, and why not? Ironically, the bottom-up approach, on which I spoke in my first presentation in America, is more idealist, highly spiritual. And with the bottom-up approach, you are appealing with sublime matters formed and brought up in the company. When you go top-down, you appeal with some animal feelings. The animal feeling is straightforward, but it works for them. You fix them, then they are not freaks. They are not freaks on the first project, but you are. Why can you do this? So this is such an interesting aspect that, by and large, in a new project, naturally, everyone doing it. Unlike the first, who wished to, and they had lofty thoughts, lofty matters. And the latter ones, they don't want to, they just need to do it. But with the second ones, you can play at the expense of animal instincts. So a few words about people. A situation when we talk about the need for two necessary conditions and everything is different with us and why not the case. Why not state and from why not to the state of minimization. And moreover, it's not about minimizing its processes, but the IT system, unlike in the primary case. And this slide shows a meteor shower. I tried to do something like this, like a meteor shower. But in life, everything is not like this. The stars don't fall, don't pour in. There are only a few of them. And the stars are already working on their first project. And in scaling project, everything is different. But there is a strong inspiration factor because there is a working solution and you build replication from it. Not with those fundamental principles of the implementation approach. And this approach, there is an approach to implementation which I described in my first presentation, bottom-up, and in fact, it is implementation from scratch. But for this case, certain basic things that I've spoken of must be satisfied. And in the case of top-down or implementation of a live IT system, the approach is entirely different. There is a working solution, but there is no background. So the principles you start working on are different. And firstly, in such a short period of time, as the time of the project, it is just impossible to teach new people like those people with whom you did the first project. Secondly, even from a technical point of view, all company businesses are different. And that's why it is impossible to simply take software and start using it according to the current regulation. And maybe because businesses are different, if they were the same, they would be merged. So you start using something else. And animal instincts in another manifestation may also be called as leadership, manipulation of the company's management, in that everything should be the same at the whole company. That is, it is really that everything in our company is so different that it works somewhere, but somewhere doesn't. Your top management will ask you this question, and so why not? Why is everything is good with them, but what are you freaks? Why can you replicate it? Just take and replicate. So you use the administrative lever, and on the one hand, you use the spirit of competition and the nature of inferiority. And on the other hand, you use the administrative lever in the form of the following. Just guys, you have no choice. The management has said that it is what you need. The management said that the first ones are doing well, and so everything should be fine with you too. So the point is that in the first approach they wanted, so but in the second they are just forced. A few words about the model. The model myth concerns the fact that everything is not so. Indeed, the production and limitations are different. And here, two factors play a huge role. First, you need a strong vendor-side IT development team who will work all day and night, coming up with some incredible things. And you also, another factor plays, the power of persuasion. Of course, it echoes with another myth, let's say that they are all echo. And the power of influence, I mean, in the sense that you should minimize changes and not to current processes, but to current systems. So in the first case, it was minimization according to your processes, but in this case, according to your system. Technological myth. And in terms of technology, this kind of system, as a rule, is always new integration, new IT solution, and so on. They're so new. And the implementation phases are also slightly different. And in the stage of the scaling, you first actively use the so-called internal reference visits. And you endlessly show those who don't have this new system as their neighbors do. So the purpose of this is to achieve a transition from the point, well, our production is different, business is different, into say that in principle, why not? So you transfer people to some kind of subconscious feeling from the where completely different state to the why not state. Maybe subconscious, but however, why not? Then you just start a project. It means valuable. In the first case, values were expressed and proved more through economic effects. And in the second case, no one expects this by and large. And in the second case, the value becomes more functional. In first case, money was expected. Money was expected. And in the second one, an economic effect is deferred and functional in terms of standardization processes. And short summary, short conclusion. One of the key principles, which I spoke about in the first report, is to achieve all the subconscious understanding by your key people in the project. of the development areas that the number of changes should be minimized. Everything is the same here. But unlike to the first project, you minimize not current processes, but IT system changes. Because, of course, indeed, businesses are different. And the IT system, like the prototype, was developed from the first project. And the question is not to adapt to existing processes, but to adapt IT systems. The second one is to achieve the transition from "and everything is different with us" to "why not" state. And further, the animal instincts and competitions management. The fourth is to realize that the plus is that you have a working prototype, but all those pluses from the bottom-up case are no longer there. And finally, the scaling value also looks different. So overall, both of these approaches, the first one and the second, implementation from scratch and implementation with a live system, seem to be about the same thing, but completely different. Because these are two completely different processes, completely different tasks. And how I want to end up my speech. On this slide, you see some kind of galaxies. Why do you think there are no copying in the universe? The types are the same, but there are no copies. So why did you decide that you can recreate everything precisely the same when scaling? I think that each project is unique. So that's all for today from my side, and let's connect, and please comment and ask questions so that I understand the feedback from you. And you can also subscribe to my Supply Chain Universe YouTube channel. It's a new journey for me, and just thank you.